Good morning, Kahal Kadosh. Shavua Tov Mevorach. It's good to be back today. The 11 o'clock Pirke Abot weekly class, 19th of Shevat, the 1st of February 2021. Today's class graciously dedicated La'ilui Nishmat Yosef ben Sara, beloved father of Ezra, David, Michael, and Salomon Hanono, by Ivor and Robin Braca La'ilui Nishmat, her mother, Marinelle Masha Bat Blanche Eisenberg, by Rachel Alfasi and Sarit Warman Le'ilu Nishmat, Ruth Mishan Cohen, the Hilu Bad Latife, as well as the Refuah Shelema of Haim Obadiah Abdo ben Zehie and Yaakov ben Esther, among the Holim of all of Am Israel. As I said in the previous class, today I will have to give you a shorter than usual class due to the fact that we are going to have a major shiur with Hacham David Yosef Shelita for all of the young rabbinical scholars of our kollel, as well as the rabbis of the community and other Torah institutions that are coming to hear the great rabbi. So remember, in last week's class, we learned how the Mishnah tells us, be careful in not minimizing or belittling people. So today's the Mishnah is going to teach us one more concept relating to that, and it comes from a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Levitas. Rabbi Levitas is the only Mishnah in the Pirke Abot that he gives a message, and it says from the city of Yavne, Me'od, me'od, very, very much, Heve shefal ruach, be humble in spirit, shetikvat enosh, because the ultimate end of a human, Rima, is a few feet under, and whatever happens underneath on that moment of life. Short Mishnah, so we're going to go straight into the Mefarshim. So the Mishnah tells us as follows. In the beginning of chapter 2 of the Pirke Avot, the commentaries tell us, Derech HaEmsa'it. It says a person should always follow the middle of the road protocol. Don't be stingy, but don't be wasteful. Be generous with measurement. What about humility and arrogance? So according to this, it says, B'midat ha'ga'ava, when it comes to arrogance or haughtiness, it's not so. אלא יטה לקצה האחרון של שפלות הרוח. Go to the extreme of learning how to become humble. Learn how to ignore. Learn how not to react. Respect everyone. Treat everyone respectfully. Don't act or speak in a condescending manner. Don't be impulsive, and respect others' opinions. I can go on with examples, but I think that the opening statement of the class should in a way summarize the great statement of Rabbi Levitas. And not only that, if we can add the famous letter that the Ramban Nachmanides wrote to his son, I'm sure you have heard of this. Shema beni musar abicha, listen, my son, the teachings of your father. Ve'al titosh Torah timecha, and do not abandon the Torah of your mother. And the prayer right away says, Titnaheg tamid. Titnaheg comes from the Lashon minhag. Tamid means always. So is it a tradition or always? If it's a tradition is not written in stone. Could be done, cannot be done. But tamid is always. So I believe that the message of the Nachmanides is that we need to start training ourselves for it to become my natural way. And what is he talking about? תתנהג תמיד לדבר כל דבריך בנחת. When you speak in a pleasant way. דברי חכמים, the words of the wise, בנחת נשמעים. When they are being told calmly and respectfully, they are heard. לשון רכה, a soft way of speaking, תשבור גרם, breaks the rocks. And it says, לכל אדם, to any person, ובכל עת, and in every instant, ולכל זמן, and in any occasion. And what are the benefits of the dividends by a person learning how to speak properly? יעלה על לבך מידת הענווה. Actually, I skipped one line. I apologize. ובזה תנסל מן הכעס. When you talked in a calm way, and the person is calm, this will subside the anger. There are many times the way that a person speaks and the way that we speak, it will cause a reaction to the person that we are talking to. And that can lead into an argument. And that argument can lead into anger. But if I deliver the same message in a powerful, but in a beautiful and respectful way, my anger goes down the drain. בכאשר תנסל מן הכעס. Now that anger, I'm in control. Instead of anger controlling me, I'm controlling the anger. And I use the word me and I because I'm talking, that's all. בכאשר תנסל מן הכעס, יעלה על לבך מידת הענווה, שהיא מידה טובה מכל המידות הטובות. When you spare yourself from anger, you will flourish with humility, which is the best character trait to have. שהיא מידה טובה מכל המידות הטובות. Yani, if somebody asks you, what is the best character trait to have and to develop? Your answer needs to be anava, humility. What is the worst enemy of the person? Because if saving from anger flourishes the best, it means that anger is the worst. So now we have two extremes. We have anger and we have humility. Anger, the Zohar calls it avodah zarah, idolatry. Because the person disconnects from God in the moment of anger. And the reason why we disconnect from God is, why are you getting angry? Because something didn't go your way? Maybe this is God's way of talking to you. I'm telling you, it's not the way today. And there are many answers to this, but one of them is that if a person has emunah, hopefully they will allow the person to deal better with situations. And goes further. הואיל שזו מידה מגונה מאוד. Anger has a twin brother or a twin sister known as arrogance or haughtiness. A person feels superior over the other person. If I do it, it's right. If somebody else does it, it's wrong. That's concept ga'ava. Or the person becomes very sensitive in a negative way. Any comment bothers him or her. Any situation, they have an opinion what to give and what to say, and always leads into negativity and darkness. That's all part of ga'ava. And it goes even further and it says, צריך להתרחק ממנה a person must keep away from it as far as you can. We're not saying that it's easy, because at the end of the day, midot is not something that we change overnight. But this is one drop at a time. Every week we learn topics, we learn scenarios, we learn situation. And Be'ezat Hashem, sooner or later, the heart will be penetrated by the words of Torah. And that's why when the Torah describes, excuse me, the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu, what the Torah says, Ve'aish Moshe anav me'od. Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble person. And guess what? Moshe Rabbeinu had enough reasons why not to be humble. He took us out of Egypt. He married the daughter of Yitro. He was adopted by Paro. His parents were Yocheved and Amram. His siblings were Aharon and Miriam. Kiriat Yamsuf, the man, the miracles that happened in the desert, gave us the Torah, Shavuot, Perashat Yitro, this week's Torah portion. So if Moshe Rabbeinu would have had a little bit of arrogance and haughtiness, okay, we understand it. But the Torah tells us no. Ve'aish Moshe anav me'od. Says, you know why Moshe Rabbeinu was all of the good things that I mentioned before? Because he had humility. And if he would have had arrogance or haughtiness, like we have seen some colorful characters in the Torah, who knows if Moshe Rabbeinu would have become Moshe Rabbeinu. And the more humble the person becomes, and humility is also recognizing Hashem's intervention in our life, and understanding that our success is a godly given gift, is not guaranteed by any human. It's not FDIC insured. But one thing is for sure, the more the person becomes humble and works on the humility and the easygoingness and self-control and less impulsive and more thoughtful of others, all these baby steps help the person to become humble. And therefore you don't take anything for granted, and you respect everyone, and you treat people respectfully. And therefore it says, Shetikvat enosh rima. It says at the end of the day, the person comes to the world, lives X amount of years, and what is the end of the person's life? In a physical way, the person goes back to where they came from. On the spiritual way, the neshama goes back to where it came from. And then, Be'ezat Hashem, we hope that very, very soon the Geulah will be here, Mashiach will be here, and therefore things will become better automatically, Be'ezat Hashem. But in a more realistic way, it says the Mishnah, why are you bragging? You're bragging on what? On something that is not yours, like your life? We don't have control of our life in the sense of expiration date. When the expiration date comes, God forbid, it comes. Obviously, we're not happy even to speak about it, and it's not enjoyable to hear this, but that's basically what the Mishnah is telling us. So if a person goes back to where they came from, where are we then? And the Torah asked, V'nachnu ma? That shows a tremendous amount of humility. Aaron HaKohen and Moshe Rabbeinu, where are we? Avraham Avinu says, Anochi afar ba'efer. I'm dust and ashes. I'm nothing. David HaMelech, Be'anochi tola'at belo ish. Herpat hayam uvzui am. I'm a worm. I'm not a human, David HaMelech says. And don't take it the wrong way. These tzaddikim, they took nothing for granted. And they value and appreciate it and express their gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all the blessings and all the challenges and all the difficulties that they had in their life. Like we mentioned, the great student, or the teacher rather, of the great Rabbi Akiva, Nahum Ish Gamzu. And we spoke about him more than once. Gamzu letovah. Even in the face of adversity that could have had catastrophic consequences for the Jewish people during the time of the Roman Empire, what were the magic words of Nahum Ish Gamzu? Gamzu letovah. If it happened, Hashem allowed it. And if Hashem allowed it, is for a good reason, because only good things come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Baal Shem Tov says, in these 3 words of Gamzu Letovah, I read it maybe a week ago at home, and he says as follows, that when a person is faced with a challenge or with a difficult situation, and the person says, Gamzu Letovah, let's say you were working on a deal, on a real estate deal, on a business deal, whatever, and it didn't happen. There are many ways that a person reacts to this. Some people, that day could be ruined for them. Uli, I wanted, I expected, I planned, now I can't. All that heshbon. Or a person, very calmly, says, Gamzu letovah. Must be a godly reason why it didn't happen. And I'm willing to accept it. The Baal Shem Tov says that in the face of adversity, when a person acts in this way, I'm not saying that automatically from now on we're going to be called Nahomish Gamzu or Gamzu Letovah. But one of the main reasons why we speak about Tzaddikim and about Hachamim, if it's on the Talmud or the Mishnah or whatever they are, is because they reached that level. And that's why you see names of Tzaddikim, or Tanaim in this case of the Mishnah, connected to the Mishnah. So when the Mishnah says, Rabbi Levitas Ish Yavne Omer, or Rabbi Akiva Omer, or Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer, that teaches us that they reached that level of the Mishnah. And he worked throughout his life in how filling another one, God forbid, to deliver the wrong message. We're not talking about the lack of self-esteem and the person may have an inferiority complex. God forbid, that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about that a person does not take anything for granted and understands that everybody deserves to be treated properly. Everybody deserves to be respectful and respected and speak to people in a good way. But there are some people which they don't. There are people when they talk in a very impulsive or in a very condescending way. And the Mishnah is telling us that's a recipe for disaster. You're hurting yourself and you're hurting the person that you're speaking to. And therefore, it says, Le'archik milibo, the person should train, baby steps, to keep away from the heart the concept of arrogance, ulehanech atzmo, and try to train yourself be'antavut yetera, with additional level of humility. Is it easy? Probably not. Is it impossible? For sure not. It's a matter of wanting and understanding the message of the Mishnah. Now, I'd like to scan quickly. I mentioned some of the Me'am Lo'ez already, commentaries in this matter. It says, also additionally he says, Shim pogea adam b'dcha. We already mentioned how we need to treat others. Now let's do the opposite. Let's do a boomerang. What happens that somebody does not treat us in the proper way? So you know what it says here? Al takpid. Let it go. Ignore it. Does every case needs to be ignored? Probably most of them. Could be some exceptions like any way in life. And it says, what are you going to accomplish by getting back at him or at her? Nekama, vengeance, which is a Torah prohibition. That person did wrong. Nobody disagrees. But what are we going to gain? So I think the Me'am Lo'ez is saying, don't lower yourself to that level. Don't react. It's not easy, especially if the person has an impulse in the way they are. And it goes even further. There was a great rabbi that his statement became part of our Amidah. At the end of the Amidah, we have the final paragraph. Towards the middle, there is a sentence that says, Benafshi ke'afar lakol tihye. My soul or myself to all will be like dust. In other words, nothing bothers me. It's a very lofty level. Doesn't happen. I'm not telling you that I'm that fellow. I'm far. And it says, Petach libi betoratecha. Open my heart to your Torah. Why? Because when a person develops humility, the person lives a calmer and a happier life because things don't bother the person that much. And the person is able to continue learning Torah. And yes, you need to have some humility to learn Torah, to learn, to absorb, to digest the Torah. And it says also a very interesting concept. What happens if somebody speaks to us in a very not good way? What should be our reaction? From the Torah perspective, we cannot answer back. That's going to escalate into an argument. And it's actually a pasuk, Lo ta'aneh al riv. When you see the situation is fueling, and it could have an atomic explosion, so to speak, it says, don't answer back. And it says, Al ta'aneh lo. Don't answer back. And it goes even further. And it says, Im omrim alecha davar ra, al ta'anem. Don't answer. You will learn how to ignore. You will live longer and happier. And why do I say longer? The Mishnah, or the Gemara rather, it says, a story, Bama he'erachta yamim. What give you the merit of living such a long life? So it says, Me'olam, forever. Lo kilalani adam o herefani ba'anitiv. It never happened that someone cursed me or belittled me and I answer back. I stay quiet. Haiti sobel umohel lechol mishesi'er oti. I was forgiving and just ignoring those inappropriate type of words. And that's why it says that when that happens, this is maybe the opportunity that a person is able to cleanse their shortcomings. And the gift of Hashem is, and this is very deep, the gift of Hashem is that a person is able to make a tikkun by just a word that somebody said out of place. It's a gift. You rather that, or God forbid, something health, or something parnasa, or shalom bayit problems. Which rather you have? And I'm opening this statement because that's what it says here. It says the person should be happy that this is the tikkun that Hashem is giving the person. Okay, you feel bad for 5 minutes. But in Shamayim says, okay, all your averot were wiped out. Now you're starting like Motzei Kippur. Like a Hatan and Kalla under the Huppah. And this is how this particular Mishnah of today finishes, teaching us this powerful, powerful lesson. Again, it's not automatic. It's something that takes time and takes effort. But I think that in the almost half an hour that we learned today together, we were able to open this Mishnah and Be'ezat Hashem, the lessons of this Mishnah will help us, everybody, to live a more harmonious, peaceful, and meaningful life. So because it's going to be a shi'ur, I must wear a mask, but Be'ezat Hashem will say to everybody, have a great day, Shavua Tov Mevorach, and we say Tizke LaMizvot to all the sponsors of today's class, and Be'ezat Hashem, the Neshamot that we mentioned, should have an Aliyah in Gan Eden, and the Refuah Shelema names that we mentioned, also should have a Refuah Shelema among all of the Halim of Am Israel. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see each other, Be'ezat Hashem, tomorrow morning at 9:15 for the English class, and being Tuesday, 10:30, 10:30 para la clase en español. Shavua Tov Mevorach to everybody.